This is the fourth and final Miles Edgeworth manga. Unlike the other volumes, all of the text is capitalized. I have no idea why they switched to all caps at the end. It looks perfectly fine, although when I first saw it, I got the impression that the speech bubbles had less text overall.
Argofunk Book Review, Argofunk Book Review.
Case 7 is Turnabout, The Secret of the Ogres. It sounds like it was named The Secret of the Ogres to begin with, then someone reminded the translator the word turnabout has to be in there somewhere. Speaking of the translation, this case features Russi Taylor, who was in 2 of the Phoenix Wright mangas. Edgeworth knows her, even though he wasn't in those mangas. I guess Franziska von Karma told him about those cases. For some reason, this translation uses the name Candy Holly instead of Russi Taylor. Continuity! Candy is a big fan of ogres. There are comedy moments where Candy is super excited to see ogres. Gumshoe's so scared of ogres, he almost vacates his bowels, as Edgeworth puts it. There's also a comedy relief exorcist who screams a lot and does weird rituals. The story is that Detective Gumshoe's car breaks down in the middle of the woods. He and Edgeworth are forced to stay at the nearby Ogre's Axe Hotel. The hotel is fully booked, but Edgeworth turns on the charm for the receptionist. He's so handsome. She can't help but do whatever he wants. You know, if Edgeworth used his handsomeness powers in the games, they would be a lot shorter. Edgeworth and Gumshoe are taken to a separate building called the Annex, which can only be accessed through the 3rd floor. This building is in bad shape. Floors 1, 4, and 7 were destroyed by fires, and they removed the building's exterior stairs. The only way to get around is by using the terribly old elevator. Our victim is hotel owner Tony Granier, who wants to tear down the entire building. The suspects include security guard Carl Powers, manager Sergio Youngport, and the beautiful Ava Silent. Ava is here because her husband disappeared last week. The phone company says his cell phone is somewhere in this building. Ava and Granier go to the 4th floor, where her husband stayed. They can't find his phone. Both Granier and Gumshoe peek through the boarded-up window. They see an ogre floating in the darkness. Obviously, the mystery doesn't work if our detective hero isn't there. Why does Edgeworth tag along in this particular case? It's because Candy warns Granier is a huge pervert who does bad things to women if he's not supervised. It's nice to see an Ace Attorney case that doesn't treat sexual harassment as a laughing matter. Later that night, Granier falls to his death from the 7th story exit. Nobody knows how he got from the 1st floor to the 7th floor without them hearing the elevator. Speaking of, Gumshoe swears about how slow the elevator is. Gumshoe language! As revealed, Ava and her husband are career extortionists. Edgeworth solves the case when he sees Ava can't reach the button for floor 7. He says, "An ogre committed this murder!" That's not what he means, but it makes for a great cliffhanger. Edgeworth explains the culprit switched the elevator buttons, so floors 7, 4, and 1 were all mixed up. Since all those floors were burned by fires, no one could tell them apart. This explains how they saw the ogre floating outside of floor 4. It was really someone standing on the ground of floor 1. This also explains how the victim fell from floor 7. He thought he was going through the floor 1 door. Mr. Youngport is the culprit, as he's the only one who has worked here long enough to know about the elevator buttons. Youngport looks more and more like an ogre as he argues for his innocence. It turns out that Ava's husband set a fire on floor 4 as part of an extortion scheme. Youngport was so mad he killed Ava's husband. Like an Edgar Allan Poe villain, he hid the body behind a wall, then boarded it up so no one would ever find it. When he heard Ava plan to find her husband using a cell phone, Youngport concocted the scheme of switching elevator buttons to trick her into searching the wrong floor. Case 8 is the Turnabout Clinic. Edgeworth and Gumshoe go to Jiffy Clinic, which is run down because all of their money goes to a swindler named Mr. Swindle. He comes by every day to get money and coffee with a disgusting amount of sugar. The people at the clinic include 2 gorgeous nurses, 2 not gorgeous patients, and Dr. Jiffy. Swindle's coffee is poisoned. He dies inside a waiting room. It appears to be suicide as the door was locked and the electric keycard was found inside the room. Edgeworth realizes the culprit used a complex string system running along the ceilings of the building. The keycard was tied to the end of the string. That way the culprit was able to lower the string to lock the door from the outside, then pull the string in to drop the key inside the room. The culprit is Clive Fortuna, who has a broken leg. Clive set up the murder trap, and he purposely twisted his good ankle to give himself a fake alibi. It sounds painful. Edgeworth proves Clive's guilt by revealing Clive used a bandage roll in place of string. There's more than enough evidence on his fake bandages. The end. Postbook follow-up. The translator notes that Edgeworth and Gumshoe both refer to Clive with the honorific Coon, which means, "You are younger than me." That's not true. Clive is 33. Edgeworth is around 27 when Phoenix Wright 3 takes place. So either the author mistakenly thinks Edgeworth is much older, or he's using a less polite honorific because he dislikes Clive for some reason. The elevator mystery was great. It works super well in this format, where we can literally see the different number layouts. I could definitely picture a version of this case without Grainier's murder, where the missing husband is the main mystery, or a version where the second ogre appearance is removed. However, it fits the game to add in complications that force Edgeworth down rabbit holes instead of streamlining the story. The hospital case wasn't as good, perhaps because it was noticeably shorter than usual. The characters were less interesting, and I think the subplot about lacquer plates could have been removed entirely, which is why I didn't mention it. I find it a little hard to believe that the culprit set up a complicated string system on the ceilings, and there's no physical evidence of that on the ceilings. Overall, I liked the first mystery, which is 2/3 of the book. I half liked the second mystery, which is 1/3. Doing the math, that means I give Miles Edgeworth Ace Attorney Investigations Volume 4 an 8 out of 10.